I'm driving along and I see this thing come out in the road. It's a long ways down. It's probably over half a mile from me, but you can see it really good, down this road, and it's daylight. And I'm like, wow, what's that? Boy, that thing's big and it's dark. And then all of a sudden another one appeared right next to, kind of came out from the side of it and was darting around. It was smaller. And I'm like, what? And then they get across the road. So I'm like, wow. So I get down there, and of course I didn't see anything, and I didn't get out because there didn't look like a place where they would leave prints, but anyways, I saw that, and that kind of really intrigued me. And plus the fact that I had talked to the UPS, my UPS driver, who said he's seen something cross the road just not far from that spot, right where all these houses are. And he said he was coming down. It was in the late afternoon, evening time, and it was in September. And it crossed and went in front of a speed limit sign. He said it blocked the speed limit sign out. You know how.
Frame of reference.
Yeah. And then and so he told me about that, and then he told me about his experience when he was a kid in Port Angeles, and him and his friend went up some creek. He didn't say the name of it, but they go up and fish for trout on it, and they went up there. And he said he felt like something was watching him, and he looked up, and there was something staring at him across the creek, kind of through the bushes, and it was up real high up, and he didn't know what it was. And then so they got a little nervous, and they started to walk out, and they found the track, and he said the track was like 17 inches long, and they started following. They were going along following it, and they finally got a certain distance, and they said, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And they didn't continue. They never saw it again. But yeah, so all that kind of stuff has got me.
Is that what got you interested?
Yeah, that got me interested.
The Olympic Peninsula is a place that is awash in stunning natural beauty. Pacific coastal scenes that are quite hard to forget. Unreal temperate rainforests like those found in the Hoh rainforest and around the peninsula. In the heart of it all is, of course, the mighty Olympic mountain range. For a state like Washington, which is filled with so much epic scenery that provides competition to the Olympics, like say the Cascade Mountain Range, the Olympic Peninsula certainly manages to hold its own. This is especially true when it comes to Sasquatch stories. It's no secret that for decades, Washington has been one of the top states by number of reports overall, with a majority of that being clustered up and down the Cascades and of course in the Olympics. When I first visited the Olympic Peninsula a few years ago, it became clear to me why this was such an enticing area and how it could potentially house something like the Sasquatch species. So right now I'm here on the beautiful Olympic Peninsula in Washington State. I haven't been out here since 2021 when we filmed some of the original Beyond the Trail episodes. Actually, technically the second ever filmed Bigfoot Beyond the Trail or Beyond the Trail episode we filmed out here at the Olympic Project property in the cabin near the Olympic Range, and you've got amazing, beautiful lakes close by, and so much Sasquatch history in Washington State, which has just so many different areas, whether it's the Cascades, the north or the south, the Blue Mountains in eastern Oregon, and the Olympics. There's so many areas to choose. And I've been spending a lot of time in the Cascades, visiting places like Bumping Lake and other areas in the Cascade Range. I wanted to make sure I at least had a little time to come out here to the beautiful Olympic Peninsula. And that's where I am here with Shane Corson of the Olympic Project, who is just a fantastic person and an even better researcher and somebody that I really look up to. We came out to the Olympic Project property out here, and Shane brought to my attention a very interesting case not far from here of a property owner with an ongoing history of activity. And there's been multiple road crossing sightings in the recent years very close to where this happened. And if you look at kind of the loop around the Olympic Peninsula, there actually is a lot of Sasquatch road crossing sightings around the peninsula, not just here, but down towards Gray Harbor, down towards the southern part, I mean the entirety of the peninsula. Let's take a look at reports in the northern part of the peninsula, near beautiful Lake Crescent, which is part of the Olympic National Park. This is a very rugged area in which you have the national park and the Olympic National Forest basically surrounding the lake itself. As we can see here on the Bigfoot Mapping Project map, we have tons of reports submitted to the BFRO, self-reported to the Bigfoot Mapping Project, and even part of John Green's pre-2000s database. A few of these reports are quite recent, including this Class A, meaning a visual sighting reported in late 2024, taking place in the fall. The report reads as such. Nearest town, Forks. Nearest road, 101. Observed, we were driving through a construction area on Highway 101, and as we rounded a part of the highway, we seen a Sasquatch about 9 or 10 feet tall, and at least 3 feet wide at the shoulders. It was walking into bushes and trees. The movement was sudden and erratic, like it was hurrying, but it pushed the alder trees to the side, and within a few steps we stopped seeing the brush moving, and it disappeared completely. Its fur was black like a bear's, but it moved on 2 legs in a flash. Everything in total was about 5 seconds. Other witnesses, 2 witnesses, 1 driving, 1 passenger. We were looking at the side, talking about the road work, and we both stopped talking at the same time and just observed. Both of us took a moment to talk and then confirmed what we seen. Other stories, just north towards Beaver and towards La Push. Timing conditions, weather was clear, lighting was still pretty good. It was in the early evening about 5:30 to 6 p.m. Environment, side of the road up a little hill heading into the woods, past the house with the chainsaw carvings, before the construction stoplights. One report self-submitted to the Bigfoot Mapping Project took place right on the shores of Lake Crescent itself, with this user-submitted map highlighting the area. According to the report, this is what happened. Quote, I drove to the end of Camp David Jr. Road and was surprised at the remoteness of it. Off-season, I started hiking east down the Olympic Discovery Trail, figuring I had a good hour or so before dark. About 150 yards onto the trail, I decided to go off-trail down to the shore of Lake Crescent, circled in red in the first pick. Once there, I saw a pile of rocks, a bit smaller than cantaloupes, all with red streaks in them. Using what tracking skills I have, I could tell something large had been down there. Strange. I attributed it to another trailblazing hiker. Taking a rock, I started back up towards the trail, route in red. The deep dusk came on quick, and as I was nearing the trail, I stopped dead in my tracks. 17 yards in front of me was undoubtedly a 10-foot tall silhouette of a Sasquatch within the yellow circle. I pretended not to see it, both mentally and physically, and walked on. It took me months to face the fact. That silhouette had a 1% likelihood of being a tree. End quote. While I don't have any way to independently verify the veracity of this report at this time, it is intriguing nonetheless, and the area it occurred in is one that would not be surprising for this kind of thing to take place. especially given the history around Lake Crescent and that part of the peninsula. Now that we have some context as to the general location in this part of the Olympic Peninsula, Shane and I prepared to head out to meet with the nearby property owner that he had been in contact with previously. All right, man. So here we are at the OP cabin. It's been a minute since I've been here, at least. We got the famous table here with all the signatures.
Yeah.
So we're out here in the Olympic Peninsula. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been out here, but you brought to my attention, you've had some recent sightings coming up in the area, and you had the idea to go check out a property of a guy who's been in touch with you. And can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the last year or so, year and a half, there's been a lot of roadside crossings on the 101, and we're right off of that up here, you know, in between the Elwha and Forks. This gentleman, Jim, got a hold of me over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, I believe. And, you know, I'm a very busy guy, obviously, but he'd shared some experiences that had happened that he was aware of and some of his past stuff. And so, long story short, I finally got a hold of him. We had a great talk, and I was very interested in what he had to say. So I invited him to the OP property. We were doing a public expedition at the time.
Right.
Dr. Meldon was here and stuff. And so Jim came from his property, which is a stone's throw away, basically from here, not that far away. And invited him over here to share his knowledge of the area, knowledge of the roadside crossings, his experiences, and we really hit it off. He's been inviting me out to his property for over a year now.
Wow.
And I've not been able to make it out there, you know. And so very fortunate that you were in town and we were heading this direction.
Yeah, we were planning on doing something out here, and you know, I've been in the Cascades all week, and we kind of ran a little short on time, but you know, I haven't been out here in so many years. I thought, you know, you suggested this. We had a couple other ideas,
Sure.
but this was like, this makes sense. I mean, and you know how close it would be, right? So.
Oh yeah, it was just kind of good to have you back up here, and no brainer, and it worked out really well that we got to kind of stop by the OP property for a minute, and I get a hold of Jim, and he's like, "Come on out."
While we're out here, we're going to go visit with this property owner and have him talk about some of what he's been experiencing. This is an area I hope to visit in the future for perhaps a longer investigation, but for now, I want to get out there and talk to this property owner and kind of see what's going on and how it compares to other Sasquatch cases and stories I've heard before. So here we are, and we're going to go have a great chat with this property owner and kind of get a lay of the land and see what's going on.
I'm 99.9% convinced that they're real, and I think I'm almost 100% that I saw two. I was driving going to the gym, and in the morning, it was in the spring, no hunting or anything was going on, no mushrooming. The neighbors, I knew the neighbors down there, and the one neighbor wasn't even there when this happened, because I thought maybe it was them, but when I drove by, they weren't there. Now, they could have been in their vehicle. Come over this way.
Sorry.
There's a pile of something you don't want to step in.
I see that. Thanks for that.
You got it. And that's fresh. But anyways, so I'm driving down the Mary Clark Road, and it's a ways down. It's a big, long, straight stretch. You guys might see it if you go out that way. You can go out that way if you want. Right. I'm driving along, and I see this thing come out in the road. It's a long ways down. It's probably over half a mile from me, but you can see it really good, you know, down this road, and it's daylight. And I'm like, wow, what's that? Boy, that thing's big, and it's dark, and then all of a sudden another one appeared right next to, kind of came out from the side of it and was darting around. It was smaller, and I'm like, what? And then they go across the road. So I'm like, wow. So I get down there, and of course I didn't see anything, and I didn't get out because there didn't look like a place where they would leave prints, and but anyways, I saw that, and that kind of really intrigued me. And plus the fact that I had talked to the UPS, my UPS driver, who said he's seen something cross the road just not far from that spot, right where all these houses are. And he said he was coming down. It was in the late afternoon, evening time, and it was in September. And it crossed and went in front of a speed limit sign. He said it blocked the speed limit sign out. You know how.
Frame of reference.
Yeah. And then and so he told me about that, and then he told me about his experience when he was a kid in Port Angeles. And him and his friend went up some creek. He didn't say the name of it, but they go up and fish for trout on it, and they went up there. And he said he felt like something was watching him, and he looked up, and there was something staring at him across the creek, kind of through the bushes, and it was up real high up. And he didn't know what it was. And then, so they got a little nervous, and they started to walk out, and they found the track. And he said the track was like 17 inches long, and they started following. They were going along following it, and they finally they got a certain distance. And they said, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And they didn't continue, and they never saw it again. But yeah, so all that kind of stuff has got me.
Is that what got you interested?
Yeah, that got me interested in it. And then it wasn't long after that I learned about the OP guys. I watched Derek talk about his when he was up in the Olympics, and then the other one where the one was with the tree, and the different colored one that was real light or orangey colored or whatever. Blondish. Yeah, blondish. So, and I'm just sitting there listening to all this stuff, and then I've listened to his experiences and all this stuff, and then the nests, and it just took off. My mind just started going 100 miles an hour, and I'm going, golly, I live right in the middle of it. And so yeah, and then my cousin had a sighting about 5 years ago, not far from where that sighting happened last fall or fall before last, the one that Shane we talked about at your guys' program there. And I know that lady real well because her husband's had experiences, and he's told me some of his stuff, and he would be a neat guy to interview. But they're real shy, and they're not really into the thing, but I think he'd do it. But he told me a couple things that happened to him that was wild. Hunting, one following him and throwing stuff at him and making noise and acting not too friendly and very, very close. And it got so intense that he wanted to get to his truck, and he had to go. His truck was on the other side of the Sasquatch, and he said he raised his gun up and was gonna shoot it, and it didn't come out, and it left. I think it was right after he did that. He brought the rifle up, and everything died off, and he didn't go back there for quite a long time, and he hasn't done it for several years. And then when I went and visited them, and he told me about his stories. That actually got him over the hump, because I told him a little bit about what's going on with me, and that got him over the hump to start going back out in the woods and going fishing again, because he had an incident fishing down on the Quileute River. Big rocks being thrown at him while he's fly fishing, and they were big rocks. And he said he brought his friend later on and showed him because you could tell the rocks because they didn't have any algae or anything on them, and they stuck out like a sore thumb in the water. So yeah, wow. So all that stuff, the stuff that you guys have done, I've been watching that, and the Alaska thing, and that got me really intrigued, because I've been on the Kenai Peninsula before, but never out that far out, and that's really remote out there. I know that is, and there's good black bear hunting out there too, but there's also big coastal brown bear out there. Yeah, big ones.
Grew up in Homer. He used to hunt outside of Port Chatham. He used to hunt bear right in that area, and Port Chatham's got that whole reputation with the killer.
Yeah. So yeah, all of that combined, and then I thought I saw a print, and I'll show you where I thought I saw an imprint. It wasn't a deep one, and I'll kind of show you where it was. But the only reason why I noticed it was because I saw the toes on it, and it was in the leaves, and it looked like a bear. It caught my eye because I thought it looked like a bear track, a front pad bear track, and I stopped and started looking at it, and I filmed it, videoed it. Of course, I don't have the video. I somehow managed to delete it. I'm not very good with that stuff. I'm getting better. Mm-hmm. But anyways, thinking back on it now, I would like to try to cast it because I think I could have got the toes to come out. It wasn't deep. It was like the ground it's on is real packed. It's where we drive my quad and people walk, and it's right along the river, so it's really hard. And I know that Bigfoot tracks are really wide and stuff, so they probably up on hard stuff like that, like when you see their tracks on the, like at logging sites or whatever, that's all packed down stuff, and you see it in that real powdery stuff that Dr. Meldrum talked about. And so, yeah, and then I got to go talk about this at the OP. Shane invited me there, and I didn't know Dr. Meldrum was there. And boy, when I found out he was there, I just blew my mind, and I couldn't wait to go up to him and talk to him. But it was so cool. That was the coolest thing I've ever done one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life, was to get to do that and meet him and see all these people that go there. And then that incident that happened with you guys, where the one was right there where you guys, and that kid went to go to the bathroom, and he spooked something, and it turned out to be one, because you guys found tracks. So it's just, and then the bagpipe thing, and I'm just going, wow. So yeah, it just gives me chills to think about it. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And my brother's into it. He's into it. My wife is. I showed my Aunt Marybelle the video of that track, and she picked it out. I just showed her, I had her look at it, and I asked her, she says, oh yeah, I see it. And I says, what foot you think that is? And she called it out, left foot. Wow. And she's in her 80s, and she saw it. And I was like, huh. And of course, I don't have it, but it doesn't matter, because I believe in them. I know they're real. I know they are. And so maybe someday I'll get another chance to see one. If not, I want you guys to have access to this place, because I know they're here. I will show you more that'll kind of blow you away. Yeah, and I look down all the time. And I cut tracks all the time, elk tracks, coyote, black bear, scat, all that stuff. It's all here. You just got to look for it.
While James took us around his property, we witnessed just how rich of an environment it was, one in which many different examples of wildlife existed in. He also began to tell us about some of the stranger encounters that have taken place there. Have you had any stuff happen in here, or is this for...
Just that whoop that I heard, which we were over that way, and it came from them. We're in that direction. So, but
where were you standing when you heard the whoop?
Right by that, where I showed you, where that you were almost getting ready to step in that fresh stuff. Like yeah, right about there.
What was your reaction when you heard the whoop?
I'm like, stop. I'm going, wow, that sounds like what I've heard on their recordings. That's what I'm basing all these sounds off of now, is this stuff that you guys, I know and Chris knows, and when I started hearing about that stuff and I started paying more attention to it, I'm like, wow, listen to this stuff. What is that? It's not a bear. I think that's a person. Why would that person be way the heck out there doing that? And just amazing. That's when I heard that, and it sounded like a whoop. It was a whoop, and it was loud, but sounded like it was far back in, and it was right when I come in there. So it almost makes me think, when you're walking around, they're up in a tree, and they must be able to sense you or hear you when you start walking around, because people use this trail all the time, and nobody listens and pays attention to that stuff. But I'm starting to, and it's set me into this Sasquatch stuff. So
was that the first thing you noticed out here? What was the first thing that kind of made you think, oh, what's going on out here?
I'd have to say it was that track, that imprint that I found, that I saw. That's what I'm like, because it looks so much like a large bear, and I know what large bear tracks look like, and it looked just like that in the front part of the track. And then when I started looking at it, I could see it come back. It was about 15 inches long and about 6 inches wide, and it pushed a small stick like this into the ground. It was pushed in, and I looked for other tracks and couldn't see any, but it it was the left foot, and it was headed right into some thick stuff. Not really huge trees, but we'll go down there and I'll show you where that is. But so that's what got me going on what I'm thinking, oh my God, they're probably right here, you know, they are right here. And then I had 2 years ago, I went down to Pacific Beach for a get together, and it was during the Memorial Day weekend. And when I was gone, we had a bunch of family here, and they were driving their quads all over the place. They drive quads on the trail that I made over there, but I knew that trail. I know that trail real well. I walk on it all the time. Take the dogs on it all the time. I've gotten pictures of cougars on it, and black bear on it, and elk on it, and deer on it, and trespassers on it. And then one day after I came back, I'm walking along there, and there was these 3 big rocks. One real good sized one, and then a little bit smaller one, and then one about the same size as the smaller one. They were all touching each other right by a place where I had put a game cam, and also by a place that there was this wad of vine maple got pushed over, and there was no wind event that I could think of when I saw that. And that was another thing that got me kind of wondering, because that's when I was starting to learn about tree breaks and things like that. So that was odd. But anyways, there was these 3 rocks just showed up at this spot, and I'd had a game camera there at one time, and then I took it down, and it wasn't long after that this happened. So these 3 rocks showed up here, and I asked my cousins, and I asked around a little bit about it, and nobody said anything. And I thought maybe that's what it was, but why would they do that? It's in a weird spot to begin with, right? But it's right by the river, but it's not by a trail used by people hardly ever, if never. And it was these 3 rocks, and I'm like, and then it wasn't long after that I saw the 2 squatches cross the road down the way here. So I'm thinking, sounds like there could be a family. That might be a family of squatch that this is their area, and they're starting to come back to it now because there's fish are coming back, and the trees, the old growth, and all the food that we talked about earlier, the salmon berries, the deer, there's raccoons on occasion here. You don't see them very often, but they are here. And then just tons of food, you know, it seemed like to me, the elk. And then we had the following year after that rock deal. I was walking back to the house with the dogs down by the homestead barn, and there was a dead elk laying right there next to the fence where the apple orchard is. You got a fence around it to keep them out. Anyways, there was this dead cow laying there. There was no, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? I'm looking at it. It hadn't been there very long, and it hadn't started bloating yet. And I was like, what the heck? Somebody shot it and it died here or something. And it wasn't elk. No, I think it was right at the beginning of elk season or something. But anyways, I called the Fish and Wildlife. They came and they started looking at it to see what killed it. And its lower jaw was busted, all broke like this. And I'm not saying that a Bigfoot did it, but it could have been other cow elk might have kicked it or kicker. But then I started thinking about what Tom Seward said about the killing rocks, and I thought, you know, my mind's spinning, and maybe an elk or a Sasquatch tried to get this elk and just missed its head and got its jaw, because that's probably what they do, is go for the head. And these rocks are big enough to do that for a Sasquatch. You'll see them. So anyways, oh wow. So anyway, they took that away. So that's what got me. I mean, this whole thing, it's just one thing right after the next, it seems like. And this year I've had that call, this whoop, that was in the spring, and that call was in the early summer. And then it got hot, and I haven't had anything going. I thought something was going on with the pine cone thing.
Oh, yeah.
But those were squirrels.
Yeah, they can be pretty.
And they were way up in they're up in the old growth knocking those things down, and they were just dropping one right after the next, and they were those green ones. And I would not want to got hit in the head by one of those.
Yeah, they're pretty mischievous with those things.
So that wasn't anything, but that's another place we'll walk to too. I'll show you the grade where I walk on that, and I've gotten a few. I haven't heard anything or had anything weird happen there, but it's right where the big trees kind of stop, and where they're logging, they stop just above. And I think that, and it used to be an old riverbed right through there, and I think the Sasquatch maybe might use that area to come down to the creek too. So let's go to Paradise. I'll show you that.
You start having stuff happen out here. Did you know about stuff in the area, or I know you mentioned you're aware of other sightings, but you know what did you find out when you started asking people around?
Oh, geez, well,
going on?
yeah, that guy that I was telling you about, and the lady that saw the one across the road, she worked at the she worked at the local pharmacy in Forks, and they have Bigfoot stuff in there, and of course that's where I go get my meds. And I just made friends with her, and the next thing you know, we were talking about Sasquatch, and she told me about the things that happened to her husband, and that's when I didn't get forward about it, but I just went, oh man, I'd love to hear it. And she said, oh, I think I can get him to tell you. You want to come over? So I did, and got the whole spiel of what happened to him. And then it was funny because he had some of his kids who still live at home with him, of course, and they're all pretty much adults. And one of them, their daughters married a Native American from La Push, and they had a kid together, and then their daughter was there, and she had a little baby. Anyways, they were kind of standoffish at first, and I was getting the spiel from the dad, and then all of a sudden they all just started gravitating over, and next thing I know, they're telling me all their stuff that they played a recording of a Sasquatch screaming down by in La Push, somewhere where they go down this road, and they're there all the time supposedly. And then the girl told me about one that was messing around with them at the new housing that they have put up there. She said there was one throwing stuff at the house. And I mean, this is right in, there's like houses, 5 or 6 houses all together, and there's something, at first thought maybe it was kids, but it turned out to be, she saw the thing. It was playing hide and seek with her. And it was playing with one of her kids' toys. So that kind of is what got me going, and then I started talking. That's when I started asking about the UPS guys. There was another that took off, and I got a couple different deals from that. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. UPS guys are on the road all the damn time, and they're going all over. They go down to the Ho, and I got one guy telling me about a sighting down there on the lower Ho Road. He thought it was a black bear. He was coming down the hill, and it was up on the side of the hill, a little ways up, and he saw it, looked up and saw it. He thought it was a black bear, and then it stood up and walked back into the woods. And that guy, he goes out to the Hoko in Lake Ozette area, and there's a bunch of stuff goes on out there. And I got a picture of a footprint from a gal that lives out there. It's in the mud, and it's a small track, but you can see that pushed up thing that Dr. Melton talks about, the brake. Parcel. Yeah, you can see it see that. And that's a small track, it's not a big track. Because the lady's got her boot right next to it. Got her right foot, I think it's her right foot, and that track's a left track, I think. I can't remember. But I got that one in my iPad. So I got that. And then I started talking to, and then my cousin told me about his thing, and he's heard one, and then he saw that one cross the road there by the Mount Mueller, where the horses are and stuff. They have the horse trail there. One came out there, crossed the highway in front of him, and he saw it, and he also referenced it to a speed limit sign. It walked by a speed limit sign, and it blocked it out. He saw it from quite a ways off. By the time he got up, of course, it was gone, but that wasn't too long ago, a few years back, not too long ago. And then I just started talking to other people, and then when Tom showed up, started doing that where he's working in town there at Forks at the Sasquatch store. I've gone in there a few times and listened to him, and I've told him some of my stuff, and he was supposed to come out one day, but it didn't work out. I still want him to sometime, but anyway, so I just started asking around, and I'm pretty, you can tell once I get going, I'm not afraid to ask questions. And that's how it all took off. And then what else was one other incident that got me, was that happened around here somewhere. Oh no, it was the Cooper Ranch one. That guy worked at the Jiffy Lube, and he has a Charger car, and he really liked my truck, and they were changing the oil, and I made friends with him, and then I friended him on Facebook, and next thing I know, he's putting this thing out about when they went camping. I think it was in 2008. They went camping up there, and Bigfoot was around them the whole time they were camped. And they said, I'm going to go talk to him hopefully next Friday and get the whole thing. And maybe I'll ask him if I can take, maybe get a video of it or something. But and then he showed that print, and I showed Shane that print that they casted, but it's not a very good one. But it doesn't have any toes, but we only saw one side of it too, so I don't understand it. It could have been in weird stuff too, right? It could have been in some weird dirt or something. But yeah.
The people around here pretty open to the idea. I mean, most people you run into, or what is it like when people talk about?
Most everybody that I've talked to, yes, it didn't take them very long, because I just come right out like the UPS guy. One time he come rolling up, it was a new guy, and I said, hey, I was at my garage, I said, have you ever seen anything weird when you're out driving around? And he told me about that bat one that stood up, and that's the guy that lives out, has family on the Hoko. And so yeah, I mean, I've never had anybody negative about it, and I just mostly just people that I've met in passing, or that I know kind of, and then I've worked with some people here that I've had things happen to them while they were logging or something like that, but nothing. I could never get them to say much about it. I guess they just don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Tight-lipped.
Yeah. And I've had some real skeptics, no way. Guys that have worked out in the woods all their lives, and I never saw anything, and not everybody is going to see one, probably, because there's not that many, but boy, I don't know. There sure seems like there's a lot of them around, from here over to Grays Harbor, and I mean all the way over to the Hood Canal,
What struck me about this beautiful area was the amount of food both naturally occurring and being grown. It's no wonder that they encounter the variety of wildlife they do here.
I heard that call. I was closer. I was right about where those apple trees are, and that's when I heard that sound, that call. And it sounded like it was just right there across the road between my house.
You think kind of towards that ridge? Maybe?
Yeah, but I think it was not very far away, 200 yards. It was very distinctive, and it sounded feminine to me. And
I see you're doing, Shane. He's grabbing
berries. So yeah, and then I called back and I never heard anything again. But I've heard weird stuff up there, large stick breaking things, which weren't elk because they weren't around. And my cousin has heard stuff behind his house that sound large, moving, and then they don't make no more sound. They make one big sound, and then that's it. Nothing else. You can't hear anything walking or nothing. So
you haven't heard any knocks or anything? Kind of just that one with
your
cousin, or
yep. The knock. I've heard the knock up there when I was walking the trail a couple summers back, when I was really starting to get into it, and I heard a knock up there. And I told Shane about it. I think I texted him and said, "Hey, I heard a knock," and I said, "It's up on the ridge." And And that's when Shane said, yep, they like those ridges.
Ridge apes, as he likes to call them.
And the old swinging bridge back in the day went across right here. Right over there is one end of it, just right there, and the other end went over there, and that's where the road, there's a little road comes down, and that's where that girl was. And she said those chimp sounds or baboon sounds were coming from over there, and that big stuff right there.
So what exactly happened? You said it was 4th of July related?
Yeah, it was 4th of July, late in the evening and dark. And they just started blasting fireworks. Dog freaked out under the car, or trying to get it out from underneath the car. And then she started hearing she said it sounded like baboons. And then more than one. And it was very loud, and it scared her. And like I said, she got a hold of the dog, put it in her car, and got out of there. But she came back this year and told me that. And I was like, that interests me because there's salmon spawns right up over here. And it's real thick brush all over there. It's a perfect place for something to come out and get a fish and go right back in, just like a bear would, or something. So I don't know. I got to get in here and do some brushing. I've had it. I put it. It's been moved. This got knocked off. A squirrel could have done it, I imagine. So Squatch didn't take it, or he didn't like it. But I had it sitting right there. And this was like this. And a couple other times, a couple times back, it was gone, and I had to look for it, and it was on the ground over here. So I don't know what's doing it, but here's the 3 rocks.
Oh, okay.
And here's a game trail right here. And that elk going all the time. And that's the vine maple bush this was a few years back. This thing right here got pushed. Either the wind pushed it over or something pushed it over. But there was no wind event, no snow event. I've never seen any vine maple, because the root was right there, right at the end there. I've never seen that before, so I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
And then
could you run me through what happened with these rocks? You found them out here?
Yeah, I use this trail all the time. I come down here, walk the dogs and whatnot, and I had a game cam on that tree there, and I had not too long ago taken it off. I moved it because of that, and those weren't there. And I came back after Memorial Day 2 years ago, and those rocks were there. And I don't know. I didn't put them there. My cousin, he said no, he didn't do it. And there was tons of people around, but I don't know why they would do that. But yeah, and I haven't touched them since, and they haven't moved, but they were not there initially. Something brought them there.
You said you had the trail camera there too.
Yeah, I had it on a tree there, but it wasn't there when I took it off.
Oh, okay.
And moved it. And then that happened. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, am I on the... And it hasn't moved since. And then it wasn't long after that I saw my sighting. And I saw the 2. And they were headed towards the river, towards Bear
How many
Bear
miles
Springs.
did you say that sighting happened from here?
3.
3. Wow. That's close.
And the other sighting that the lady had, that's a little bit more than 3, but that's not far from here. And then the Cooper Ranch story that I'm going to go find out about here soon, the campers, that's right up. I'll find out exactly where that was up there, and I have a good idea, because there's several places that you can go up there and do that. So I'll see if I can get it pinpointed. So
do you have a theory as to why these things may be coming through here?
I think they've been doing it for thousands of years. I think this is a place they've always come to, and probably, dealt with man obviously since the 1890s because of the people that homesteaded before us. And that field, part of the field was there, but not all of it. And so, yeah, I think this is where the creek, you guys saw the creek, and that's been full of salmon. So that would be probably the biggest reason why, I would think, would be the fish. And everything else is just a bonus. So
All All the fruits, all the
Yeah, the elk, the deer, there's just everything's here. Blackberries and huckleberries. The huckleberries aren't really thick here like they are in places that you guys like. Some of those places sound like they're just insanely thick, and they're using it to make their nests. So, and I've never found anything like that. But yeah, I think that salmon, and they use it to probably go to wherever they stay in the winter or where they go. Maybe they stay along the river the whole summer. I don't know. And the fish are getting more and more. So, and like I said, they're over here, they're starting to really spawn a lot like up in the shallows. There's perfect spawning beds right over here. So, and then down at my aunt's house, same thing. A lot of more salmon. So, this and that are probably the two biggest things that have got my mind going by. That they're here, and they're showing me that they're here. I think they're showing me, and that's how many that stays around here. And it could have been and that girl over here heard those sounds over there last July, so that they could have been right over there and eating, coming out and eating salmon. And it's thicker than thick over there. I've walked over there. It's tough walking.
Where you got the whoop is, it's just around the riverbed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. That whoop's not far from down there. The tree knock. And the sound that I heard this spring's just right over there. So everything's kind of zeroes in around this area here. So
as we've seen, just up on that ridge behind that is just
nothing. Yep, there's nothing.
So I'm sure there's a lot of creatures that just come through here and go up there and can just disappear up into the mountains there. Once you go back here, what's the next thing you'll hit? Probably.
Well, there's another house, and that's kind of that way. A little bit off to the left. You could see it real easy on Google Map how it is, and you could line it all up with this. So that's the only other house going that direction that we're talking about. Other than that, it's
just
mountains and all trees and just like kind of around here,
Hundreds of miles.
To the park boundary,
right.
So and there's nothing back there. Logging roads, right? And
Backpacking trails, probably just really, really intrepid people go in there. A lot of people are going super deep in that wilderness, right? So.
Yep. When hunting season comes around, it must get a little bit. It's coming up here in September, so. But I've had activity in the fall during that time, so I don't think that bothers them any. But finding that elk with the broken jaw was another kind of a weird deal too. But that could have been another cow, maybe a cow kicked her or a bull kicked her in the mouth or something. But that was an odd deal. I never seen that before. And I've never walked up on just a dead elk out of the blue that just died like the night before. So I'm like, what? So yeah, there it is in a nutshell. This place I think it's got some potential to hear some things, and probably won't see nothing, because I'm never going to catch one on a game cam. I know that, and I don't have but one out, and I get tons of critters on it. I've gotten everything, every critter that lives here, I've gotten them on it. So, and there's just tons of elk, So.
So you got to experience it with me for the first time, and I was just as fascinated with your thoughts on it as I think you are with mine, because that was my first time there. My initial impression just of the property, amazing. You have the river right there with the crazy amount of salmon. Chock full of salmon.
Yeah, we were seeing a bunch of them down there in the river,
Yeah, it was amazing. And so, and then Jim and his experiences and stories of not just his personal stuff, which is interesting, but also his passion now after the fact of his stuff
Yeah.
that he's now reaching out and getting to know the local population, you know, talking to locals and getting their
Right.
opinion and stuff. And I mean, honestly, today was amazing.
It was, and what I really enjoyed about him was, and we've talked about this off camera, he's such a salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many hours we spent there. I lost track of time. We were there for quite a while. He had all these stories, he has stories from up in Alaska. He had worked up there for a while. He was a hunting guide. He's got all these great stories, and he was never like super definitive about any of the activity. He wasn't like, oh, this is, he was claiming he has evidence, or there was, because a lot of times you do these investigations, you've done, more than me, and this kind of stuff, the red flags come up, right? Mm-hmm. People want attention, that kind of thing. And I did not get any of that sort of stuff with him. He just seemed like, hey, I live out here. This is the stuff that's been happening. And then, like you said, he starts talking to other locals. Oh yeah, there was a sighting up here, or this girl had this baboon noise thing going on. Like there's all these other stories. And then we flew the drone over the area and we saw the back, and it's like, okay, it makes sense now. And the food, I mean, I was honestly looking at some of those little apples and like salivating, but I guess they're not in season yet. So I was like thinking about grabbing some and eating some even in the moment.
Apples, pears, peach.
Well, you were gorging on the raspberries.
Blackberry,
there.
the blackberries, yeah, they were delicious. But yeah, no, you're right, absolutely right. Jim is, this property is a generational property. He's been passed down for generations. It's got a lot of history,
right?
Amazing history. And Jim, being an avid hunter up in Alaska for many years and a hunter down here and all that stuff, he's pretty much heard and seen it all, right?
Yeah.
But he's not so arrogant to think that he has seen and heard it all.
Right,
but he's like, this is what I heard. I have no explanation for it. I don't know where to put that. Whoops, this and that. This is what I saw across the road. Couldn't make sense of it.
Right.
He never came out and goes, oh, I saw 100% Sasquatch definitively. And so very honest, like I said, salt of the earth. You mentioned that word.
Right.
Absolutely salt of the earth individual with real life experiences. And he's open. Like he said today, he's like 99 point whatever percent.
Yeah, I remember that moment.
Yeah.
And what I liked too was when he said, it was one time he was doing knocks and he got a response and he's thinking, oh my gosh. Turns out it was, I think, his brother or something like that.
Messing with, well, yeah.
He was just responding.
Yeah.
So, and he, I know a lot of people who would have been just like, oh yeah, I had knocks, and didn't care to investigate, but he went and figured out what it was, which, I like that. Having some answer is better than no answer,
and
right?
he admitted it.
That's it. That's exactly. So one thing that fascinates me, and then maybe you'll agree, is you guys have been here for so long here in this part of the Olympics. You've investigated all over. I mean, now that you are familiar with his case and the activity going on there, potential activity, does it surprise you at all?
Not at all. Not at all. His experiences, I lean towards it could possibly be Sasquatch related, but it adds to the database of possibilities. And so now I could look at a map, and this is an area I've never really traversed in. It's close by, but I've never traversed it. Well, it's not my property.
Right.
But it doesn't blow my mind at all. And fortunately, Jim, he's invited you back and me back, and I want to spend a lot of time there, just studying the area, putting out some long-term audio, some thermal equipment, and just being there.
See what happens.
I mean, I got nothing to lose but nothing.
Right.
Nature and
I'm glad you guys can investigate that. Obviously, I'm super thankful. I mean, I'm sure you would have gotten a chance to visit him, but it was cool that I got to go, and I always like talking to property owners, and being in an area, again, with such a good history, to me, it's almost like you've got the pieces of the puzzle. You've got the lake here, there's sightings on this side, there's sightings by the cabin on the road, and like that road system. And then you get over to his property, it's like another piece of that puzzle of the overall picture here in the Olympics.
And like you pointed out earlier, which we had talked about prior to going to this property, just ridge lines in general, you pointed out, hey, look, Shane, there's a ridge line right there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's like, it just makes sense.
Yeah, and we got a chance to kind of check it out, and it all adds up, makes sense, falls into some of my ideas, whether they're right or wrong, falls into a lot of the same kind of ideas that I'm kind of putting together, Lint Project's putting together, others are putting together, that property, obviously you got elk, you got bear, like you said, he's seen it all out there.
Yeah.
I mean, a plethora of food.
Yeah.
Whether it's meat or vegetable or
right.
vegetables. I mean, they got gardens out there. Really old apple tree. I mean,
it's an enticing area for a lot of wildlife. So I guess in conclusion, I'm obviously thankful you brought me out there, and I hope you guys have success. I hope it, again, kind of completes that picture of this area, which, again, I find that so interesting because you've been in this area for so long, investigating, around this property, and now you have another case that's so close and it's so contemporary, so it's something that's ongoing. So
yeah,
I appreciate it, and hopefully I can come out again and we can spend some quality time out there on or off camera. But yeah, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Cool.
Hopefully you've enjoyed some of James's stories and encounters, at least as much as I did. It was such a beautiful area to visit, and while it was nice summer weather and sunny, I can only imagine how this would look in foggy, misty, and rainy conditions, which is typically what this kind of place looks like. If you've had what you believe to be a Sasquatch encounter somewhere on the Olympic Peninsula, or even in the Cascades, I encourage you to reach out to folks like Shane and the Olympic Project. They are some of the few folks out there doing honest and diligent work regarding the Sasquatch mystery. I would also encourage you to report your sightings to something like the Bigfoot Mapping Project or even the BFRO. Perhaps that data could be useful to investigators down the line. Just something to think about. Lastly, if you get a chance to visit the beautiful Olympic Peninsula, be sure to enjoy all this incredible part of North America has to offer. Just be sure to keep your eyes peeled for anything out of the ordinary.